Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. If I am audible, just let me know. हाँ जी. All students, if I'm audible, just let me know. Audible. Okay. Right. चलिए, we're gonna start the analysis for today. Right. So this is the main news that we have. Israel readies for attacks as a million people evacuate. Now, I think everyone is aware of the development that is taking place in Israel and in Palestine, right? And I think everybody is particularly of this view that everyone knows that Israel has asked the people or the civilians who are in the northern Gaza that they need to evacuate and they need to move southward, right? So one of the thing we need to understand is that area, let me draw that particular area again for you guys so that you guys are able to understand about the dynamics of the situation that is there in Israel. Now let's say if this is the map of Israel, right? So I'm making a rough map, right? So if you are ever making writing answers in mains examination, you just need to make rough map as well. That will serve your purpose, right? So this is a particular, let's say, strip, right? So this particular strip, or in Hindi or in Punjabi we can say patti, right? So this particular patti or strip is the Gaza area. This is the Gaza area. Now this is one of the mostly densely populated areas that we have of the world, right? It is very much a narrow, or we can say इतनी length भी ज़्यादा नहीं है, बहुत कम wide है अगर हम बात करें इस particular area की, but it supports a lot of Palestinian population that is there in this particular region. Now the Israel government has basically declared a ground invasion on the northern side. Let's say on this particular region, I can draw it with another color, right? On this particular region, and they have asked the people that you need to move southwards, right? So it is now a humanitarian crisis that has now erupted in the case of Israel, whereas we can say rest of the Arab nations that are there in this particular region, let's say we can say ना, यहाँ पे अगर मेजर जो लड़ाई है एक तरह से तो रिलीजन की भी हो रही है, एक साइड पे ज्यूज हैं जो इजराइल हैं और दूसरी तरफ अरब पॉपुलेशन है. Now they are saying Israel is playing a psychological warfare, and they have asked the people of Palestine who are living in the Gaza that they need to maintain and steady their ground. अपने घरों से बाहर ना निकलें और वहीं पे अपनी जगह पे बनाए रखें. बट अभी इजराइल ने ग्राउंड इन्वेजन की बिल्कुल तैयारी शुरू कर दी है, एंड वी माइट नॉट नेवर नो कि अभी आने वाले टाइम में क्या होगा. माइट बी देयर कुड बी एन इन्वेजन बाय द इजराइल इनटू दिस पर्टिकुलर रीजन. अगर यहाँ पे इजराइल इन्वेड करता है इस पर्टिकुलर रीजन के अंदर, सो इट इज गोना बी अ बिग ह्यूमैनिटेरियन क्राइसिस, बिकॉज सडनली अराउंड 1.1 मिलियन पीपल would be moving southward. So this is going to create a lot of constraint on already very much, we can say, limited resources that these particular people have in this particular Gaza Strip. One thing you need to understand was कि इजराइल ने पीछे अभी वाटर सप्लाई भी कट ऑफ कर दी थी, बट दे हैव नाउ रिज्यूम्ड द वाटर सप्लाई इन, लेट्स से, context of US intervention, right? So this is a situation that is right now if I talk about the state of Israel, right, and Palestine. And this area we have already discussed, and this area what we call it as the West Bank area. This is West Bank area because this lies on the west side of the river Jordan. So this is a basic understanding that you need to have related to the map of Israel. And I'm telling you again and again, we have seen in UPSC that they are very much, let's say, this is a particular area of interest for the, let's say, UPSC when it comes to prelims, because they are asking a lot of questions from this particular region as well. That is this region of West Asia, we can say, or the Middle East, that is quite of, let's say, पर्टिकुलर. अगर हम बात करें ना, बड़ा इंटरेस्ट होता है यूपीएससी को, यहाँ से बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस पूछते हैं. कौन सी कंट्री मेडिटेरेनियन सी को टच करती हैं, कभी अफ्रीका की कंट्रीज पूछ लेंगे, या ज्यादातर ये वाली कंट्रीज के बारे में ही पूछा जाता है. सो यू नीड टू बी अवेयर, राइट? सो पीपल, लोगों को कंफ्यूजन रह जाता है. ये लेबनान है, दिस इज इजराइल, दिस इज सीरिया, दिस इज जॉर्डन. If you are able to understand this particular map, then your most of the purpose would be solved in case of Middle East. ये थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट पार्ट होता है जो आप बार बार रिवाइज करने से आपको याद हो जाएगा. और सीरिया के उस तरफ क्या आ जाता है, इराक आ जाता है, फिर ईरान आ जाता है, और नीचे वे वाला रीजन कौन सा आ जाता है, सऊदी अरेबिया वाला रीजन आ जाता है, राइट? So these are the certain points that you need to understand, and the map work shall be absolute on point. Your game shall be on absolute your best when you are reading and revising this particular map of Israel. I hope this makes sense to you and you are aware of the things that are going on in Israel, right? And one of the thing you need to understand is कि चलो ये तो बेसिक चीज है ना. अब क्या होता है कि जब हम एग्जामिनेशन की बात करते हैं ना, तो यूपीएससी अपने मेंस पर्सपेक्टिव से इंडिया के कंटेक्स्ट में पूछ सकता है कि अगर ये पूरा एरिया इतना डिस्टर्ब है, क्या इंडिया का जो मिडिल ईस्ट इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर हमने बोला था, व्हाट वुड बी द इंपैक्ट ऑन दैट मिडिल ईस्ट इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर, राइट? सो फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री ने भी रिसेंटली स्टेटमेंट पास करी है कि हमारे उस पर्टिकुलर जो G20 का इनिशिएटिव निकला है, जहां पे हमने बोला कि मिडिल ईस्ट इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर बनाएंगे, वहां पे हमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं आने वाली है. इट इज लेट्स से फाइनल एज अ, let's say we can say as anything could be, right? So they have basically said कि हमारा जो इंडिया का मिडल ईस्ट इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर है, it will not be affected by the developments that are taking place in this land of Israel and Palestine. So this point is absolutely important, and I think we have already discussed a lot about Israel and Palestine. Okay. पैलेस्तीन को हिंदी में फिलिस्तीन बोलते हैं, राइट? ये चीज भी पता होनी चाहिए. ओके. न्यू इन्वेस्टमेंट slowed again in Q2 of 2023-2024. Now, one of the things that we need to understand is when we are talking about investment, that has a significant role in the contribution to our GDP. Now, this is very important. You might have heard about production, right? So, you might be assuming that GDP is related to production of goods and services. So, how it is basically related to GDP? Let me tell you that when we talk in India, that how we calculate GDP. So, let's come to a particular basic understanding that when I say GDP in our country, mainly we can say it is calculated by two methods. One is the gross value added method or GVA method, right? And second one is the expenditure method. Now, when I talk about expenditure method, then what it is all about? Its method is basically related to प्राइवेट फाइनल कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर प्लस गवर्नमेंट फाइनल कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर. जो एक्सपेंडिचर रिसीव हो रहा है, जितना गवर्नमेंट खर्चा कर रही है कंजम्पशन गुड्स के ऊपर, सिमिलरली जो एक्सपेंडिचर रिसीव हो रहा है, जितना प्राइवेट कंजम्पशन हो रही है, उसके रिलेटेड है. प्लस there is gross fixed capital formation. Now this is also very important. Gross fixed capital formation is related to the investments that is basically given in today's newspaper, right? And then we have the expenditure received from the exports minus expenditure received from the imports. Now you must have seen there are particularly news that comes directly related to कि हमारा export expenditure कम हो रहा है, import expenditure बढ़ रहा है, जो हमें खर्चा करना पड़ रहा है गुड्स को इंपोर्ट करने के लिए. Sometimes you must have heard about the news private final consumption expenditure, and right now we are hearing this particular topic, gross fixed capital formation. One of the things that I need to understand, those who have been my ardent followers in this session, that this is basic, the most important contributor to our GDP, right? If I am not wrong, it is around approximately 50% that it contributes to our GDP. So most of our GDP is driven by this private final consumption expenditure, and there is a particular notion that this shall be offset by the increase in other expenditure as well, that is export expenditure, investment expenditure and government final consumption expenditure. Now when I talk about certain terminologies like private final consumption expenditure, you might be you have to consider like this: when we are basically spending on goods like consumer goods like AC, gaadiyan, bikes, scooters, right? So those are all the part of the consumer goods, whether it could be durables or whether it could be non-durables. So this is the basic formula that you need to understand. If any question comes to you related to analysis of certain trends in relation to GDP, so these are the four figures that you need to keep in the mind. And whenever such analysis comes, you have to have a particular data in your mind that what is the basic factor that is driving the GDP growth. So in this particular case, when I talk about our GDP, that is basically, let's say, grows over 6%, right? And this is particularly of the notion कि ये सबसे बड़ा indicator रहता है private final consumption expenditure. So this is the basic point that we guys need to understand related to GDP. तीसरा मेथड भी होता है that is given in our NCRTs, but the government favors these two particular method. And the third method, if you are aware of it, it is related to income method. राइट, आई होप सबने कहीं ना कहीं पढ़ा होगा. ये जो हमारे चार फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन होते हैं, वहां से जो इनकम आती है, लेट से लेबर से वेजेस आ रही हैं, है ना, फिर लैंड से रेंट आ रहा है, प्रॉफिट से लेट से हमारे कैपिटल से इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है और एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप से प्रॉफिट आ रहा है. सो दोज आर द फोर फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन एंड द फोर इनकम फैक्टर्स दैट कम फ्रॉम दोज फोर फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. सो दिस इज हाउ जीडीपी इज कैलकुलेटेड बेसिकली इफ वी लुक एट द थ्योरेटिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. Okay, so these were the two important news that we had in our today's analysis. Now, moving to the next part, now directly coming to the editorial. Now this editorial is related to world needs to stop taking water for granted. Now the theme of this year World Food Day, very important, October 16, today is the World Food Day. So just need to have an understanding that today is World Food Day, and this year the theme is water is life and water is food. So there the focus on the food day is related to water is life and water is food. Let's try to understand this whole topic of water, the sustainable management of water, the impact of climate change on water availability, the solutions that we need to adopt, and what are the things that we could do in future in order to have a better sustainable management of water, because today we know that we take water for granted, but it shall not be taken for granted, right? So these are certain areas and the points that we need to discuss, and this could be your direct mains question in GS paper 3. Now what I can say is October 16 is the World Food Day, and they have focused it on water, right? So the theme for this year particular, अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं October 16 की, that is water is food और water is life, right? जो भी हम कह सकते हैं, water के ऊपर focus है, तो central theme is related to water. Now one of the things that we need to understand is that climate change has a very much impact on the availability of the water. Now one thing you need to understand is that when I talk about climate change, let's say I draw over here, let's say right over here, climate change. Now its impact is directly on the availability of the water. So I can say it impacts directly on the, I can write down availability of the water. Availability of water. Now when I talk about availability of water, then it is a serious cause of concern in context to India. Why it is a serious concern? अगर हम इंडिया की बात करें, इंडिया में देखो, अगर हम बात करते हैं एग्रीकल्चर जो है हमारा डायरेक्ट, अगर हम बात करें मॉनसून डिपेंडेंट है, पहली चीज क्लाइमेट चेंज होगा, मॉनसून पैटर्न में फर्क आएगा, देन इट्स कैन क्रिएट अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम फॉर आवर एग्रीकल्चर एज वेल, एंड वी नो दैट आवर एग्रीकल्चर इज नॉट अ सस्टेनेबल टाइप ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर. सेकंड थिंग दैट वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड इज, अगर बात करें, दूसरा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है जो हमारा, जो लेट्स से, क्योंकि मॉनसूनल रेनफॉल हमें सफिशिएंट नहीं पड़ती है एग्रीकल्चर सिस्टम के लिए, दैट इज व्हाई वी हैव टू फोकस ऑन इरिगेशन, राइट? वी हैव टू फोकस ऑन इरिगेशन, एंड फॉर इरिगेशन, एंड लेट्स से आवर एग्रीकल्चर इज जस्ट डिपेंडेंट ऑन ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सट्रैक्शन. So the problem that comes over here in context of India is that climate change is having an impact on availability of water, both in context of monsoonal rainfall and both in context of water that is required for irrigation. So I can say it has two dimensions. One of the dimension is related to monsoonal rainfall, and second thing I can say is it has a direct impact on the availability of groundwater. Let's say availability of groundwater. Now one of the things that we also need to understand is this particular problem of climate change is aggravating the whole situation because of, let's say, unsustainable agriculture practices in India. Unsustainable agricultural practices in India basically creates these problems of, let's say, अगर हम बात करते हैं availability of water. Now one of the things that is the need of the hour that you might have studied in your, let's say, previous sessions, analysis, in your class notes, that is that we need to understand that in this time of let's say climate change, if we have to look for our agriculture, it has to be climate smart agriculture. This is the area that we need to focus upon, कि हमारा जो एग्रीकल्चर होना चाहिए ना, वो क्लाइमेट को देखते हुए होना चाहिए. ऐसा नहीं है कि लेट्स से वी टॉक इन कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ पंजाब एंड हरियाणा, राइट? द फोकस इज मेजरली ऑन राइस एंड व्हीट, बट वन ऑफ द थिंग वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड इज देयर इज नो अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ वाटर. Enough pressure is creating on the groundwater, that is leading to the depletion of groundwater. So we have to be smart. We need to look for other options. You can go for millets, you can go for pulses, you can go for fruits, and you can go for the growing of vegetables, because that is a better and a viable option if I talk about in context of climate smart agriculture. Now in this context, there have been a lot of technological intervention that has been done in various states. Like, one of the things that we need to understand is that what are the aspects of climate smart agriculture. One of the aspects that you can relate it to is, one of the most important thing is कि हमारे पहले तो अगर हम बात करें, better climate forecasting models होने चाहिए. This is very important thing, ताकि हम एग्रीकल्चर को उस अकॉर्डिंगली मोल्ड कर सकते हैं. Second thing is farmers needs to go for alternatives, in context of climate change. And the third thing we need to understand is there needs to be a better hydrological framework as well. that is able to tell us that what is the groundwater that is available. Better hydrological framework, right? So these are the solutions that have been implemented in various parts of our India in order to make sure that we are going for climate smart agriculture. And now this we can all relate it to the sustainable development goal, where we talk about that we have to focus on water efficiency, water use efficiency. That is also one of our national missions under National Action Plan on Climate Change, which is focused on water use efficiency. That is focused on water use efficiency. That is National Water Mission, that aims to achieve water use efficiency and increase it by 20%. So then only in the future we can realize and avert the crisis that what we are witnessing right now related to the problem of water that is very much less available, and it can create a lot of problems. I hope this point is clear to everybody, and you need to have a certain mind map when you try to discuss the topic related to water, right? Hanji. Now if you have any doubt, you can ask me. Yeah, you can also say that we need to go for better organic farming, right? So these are the practices that you can go towards if we talk about climate smart agriculture. Okay, now moving to the next part. ठीक है, ये सेम सी चीज है जो हम पहले पिछले 4-5 सेशन से यही कवर करी जा रहे हैं. क्लोजिंग द जेंडर गैप पे इन द वर्कफोर्स, वी ऑलरेडी नो, सो नो नीड टू ड्वेल अगेन इनटू दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक. Now this particular is a certain terminology that they have used in this particular article. So there are two words that are very much important over here, might be asked in the prelims or you can use it in your mains answer. Then question is related to laws of the war. So first question that they are saying over here is, किन कंडीशंस के अंदर कंट्रीज फोर्स यूज कर सकती है इन देयर इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस. किस कंडीशंस के अंदर कंट्रीज कैन यूज देयर फोर्स इन इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन. दैट पर्टिकुलर टर्मिनोलॉजी इज नोन एज जस्ट सेड बेलम. It is known as just said bellum, regulated by United Nations Charter. Second thing is, अगर आप फोर्स यूज कर रहे हो तो वॉर को कैसे लड़ा जाएगा, हाउ द वॉर इज टू बी फॉट, दैट इज व्हाट military actions are permissible. That is known as jus in bello. So one is just said bellum and second is jus in bello. So these are the two terminologies and the two words that we need to remember. I can write it over here, just said bello and jus in bello. ठीक है, से add bellum भी कर सकते हो, just said bellum and jus in bello. First is related to you need to use force in international relation, that is just said bellum. How you will be using that force, that is just in bello. So these are the two words that we need to understand. Okay, moving to the next part. The UN approved Kenya led security mission to Haiti, right? So this is a basic problem that is there in Haiti, that the area under Haiti has been taken by non-state actors, right? So there is a lot of violence that is happening. So there is a particular mission that has been signed in form led by Kenya to restore security, protect country critical infrastructure and control and the spiraling violence in the country. So just a basic understanding related to Haiti, right? Okay. Now this particular article is very interesting. Sri Lanka moves towards RCP, Bangladesh in QE. Now, one of the things that we need to understand is that RCP is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Right? It has countries like New Zealand, China, Japan, right? So these are the countries, and ASEAN, right? So these are the countries that are there and a part of this Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Until 2019, India was also the part of negotiations that was about to join this RCEP. So India till 2019 was in negotiations to be the part of RCEP. To be the part of RCEP. Can anyone tell me that if I am talking about कि यार यहाँ पे इंडिया इसका पार्ट था कि वो इसको ज्वाइन कर सकता था, पर 2019 के बाद इंडिया ने इसे ज्वाइन ही नहीं किया. इंडिया के अपने फियर से, जिसकी वजह से इंडिया ने 2019 में इनको ज्वाइन नहीं किया. द रीजंस वी कैन से इज व्हाई इंडिया ऑप्टेड आउट आफ्टर 2019. So the reasons are, first point is that rise in, or let's say import bill. इट कुड हैव रीजन, क्योंकि अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं कि रीजनल कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप है तो सीधी सी बात है आपके बीच में फ्री ट्रेड हो जाएगा एक तरह से। अगर फ्री ट्रेड होगा तो बेसिकली बाकी कंट्रीज के जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं आपकी मार्केट में फ्लड हो सकते हैं, सो इट कैन हैव अ इंक्रीज इन इंपोर्ट्स। सेकंड थिंग, it could have led to decrease in exports, right? Third thing was needed to protect domestic industry. So as a result India was not ready to be a part of this particular, अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं आरसीईपी, क्योंकि आरसीपी के अंदर क्या था कि फ्री ट्रेड होगा, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज में ट्रेड में होगा, ई कॉमर्स में होगा, सो इट कुड हैव हैम्पर्ड अ लॉट ऑफ लेट्स से माइक्रो स्मॉल मीडियम एंटरप्राइजेस दैट आर प्रेजेंट इन इंडिया. So as a result, India totally backed out of RCEP, that is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Rather, India has individual free trade agreement with most of the countries that are part of Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. India के ज्यादा क्या है रीजनल कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप में, अगर हम बाकी कंट्रीज की बात करते हैं, बट इंडिया ने इसका पार्ट नहीं बना. एक चीज ये भी थी कि अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं, मान लो न्यूजीलैंड इसका पार्ट है आरसीबी का. नाउ न्यूजीलैंड इज लॉट ऑफ फेमस फॉर इट्स डेयरी इंडस्ट्री. इफ इट्स डेयरी इंडस्ट्री कुड हैव फाउंड द प्रोडक्ट्स इन इंडिया, देन इंडियन लेट्स से मिल्क कॉपरेटिव्स वुड हैव find it very struggling, and they would have struggled in order to get their products, let's say, let alone be, let's say, selling in India. So that was one of the major concerns, that they needed to protect their domestic industry. So as a result, the whole thing got, let's say, sidelined. Plus the impact of COVID also played a very important role in India backing out of RCEP. So these are the certain points that we need to understand related to Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Now Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are in this particular process that they might join the RCEP. So Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So this is a basic news that is there. बस इसको हमें पता होना चाहिए. Rest nothing is important, right? So I hope this point is clear to you guys, and we can move to the next topics. ठीक है, अभी इलेक्शंस होने वाले हैं, देखो क्या होता है, राइट? यहां पे ऐसा कुछ ओपन नहीं है, मतलब इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, सॉरी. ओके, सो यूएस हैज वार्न्ड द ईरान ऑफ लेट्स से प्रोस्पेक्ट ऑफ ईरान गेटिंग एंगेज्ड इन वॉर, राइट? सो ये आपको पता ही है कि अरब कंट्री सपोर्ट कर रही हैं लेट्स से पैलेस्तीन को. दैट इज व्हाई दिस इज द होल इश्यू दैट वी हैव. एंड फाइनली देयर इज अ पर्टिकुलर आर्टिकल दैट इज देयर. ठीक है, अब ये ना एक टॉपिक है क्वांटम इंजन. इट इज अ लॉट ऑफ साइंटिफिक टॉपिक. सो व्हाट वी कैन डू इज, आई वुड आस्क यू गाइस कि पहले एक बार इसे पढ़ो, राइट? ऐसे समझ में नहीं आएगा आप लोगों को, एक बार पढ़ना, फिर हम इसे कल डिस्कस कर सकते हैं. इट इज बेसिकली रिलेटेड टू सब एटॉमिक पार्टिकल्स दैट वी हैव, दैट इज फर्मॉन्स एंड बोसनियंस, राइट? सो दीज आर द टॉपिक्स दैट यू नीड टू लुक एट, देन वी विल डिस्कस दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक. But there is a particular term that is very important, that is estivation. Now we will try to discuss this particular thing, that is estivation. Now what is this estivation? You might have done in your environment classes that estivation is a kind of adjustment that is made by particular kind of species in order to adjust to a summer heat, right? So this is a kind of a particular mechanism where the species are trying to maintain their internal constant. So this is a part of a topic what we call it as homeostasis. You might have studied in your environment that homeostasis is the ability of the species to adjust to its, let's say, mechanisms, right, to external conditions. So this is to maintain their internal constant, that is homeostasis, and it is of 4 types. One is regulate, second is confirm, third is migrate, and fourth is suspend. And under suspension you have a type called as estivation. Like under suspension there is also one another type you must have heard about, that is hibernation, for in the case of polar bears, right? So this is estivation, that is the summer sleep where certain species go to certain burrows, right, in order to protect themselves from a particular season in the case of extreme heat. तो वो अपने एक्सट्रीम बोरोस के अंदर चले जाते हैं ताकि वहां पे कोल्ड टेम्परेचर्स में एडजस्ट कर सके, एंड दे लेट्स से सस्पेंड देयर एक्टिविटी, दे ट्राई टू सस्पेंड देयर एक्टिविटी ताकि उनकी एनर्जी ही कंज्यूम ना हो. So this is a particular thing that we need to understand in case of estivation, that it is a form of suspension which is a part of homeostasis, right? So these are the certain points and terminologies that were given in this particular news article. Okay guys, so guys, this is it for today. If you have any doubt you can ask me now, right? I would be happy to take your doubt. Yes, we can write about Amrit Sarovar as well. Yes, very good. We can talk about that as well. Right, very good. We can talk about Amrit Dharohar as well. That is about conservation of wetlands as well. So you can write about those particular things in your answers. Very nice. Right. हाँ जी. करें session को end फिर? Okay guys. So thank you so much. We will see each other tomorrow. Right. Today is a very good day if you are a part of this Tri-City because it's a very rainy weather. So that is why it's a good day. Let's say in terms of Mosam that we can say. And till then, take care. Bye bye. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much.